Dregs, happy Tuesday. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Not going to lie, a little bit jet lagged, less about the 4.5 hours from Vegas to Toronto, more about the time change, right? You guys know that. Yeah, I try, especially during short little spurts of travel, to stick to the Eastern time zone as best I can.
Oh.
So what that means is there were a few days in Vegas where I'm literally walking through the casino and the lobby hotel of the hotel that we stayed at like 5 a.m. You know, I mean, that's 8 a.m. Eastern. Like, of course, that's where I should be. What was unnerving, I'm not a big gambler, and I'm sure Rashog is going to take his run at me because we have an internal text chain for the Rain Dregs podcast. And his lovely bride, Randine, is a participant on this text chain. And I may or may not have acknowledged that Ryan took it right between the eyes of the blackjack table one of the nights that we were there. Yeah, he thought that the bro code had been absolutely destroyed in that one text. And I said, well, if we're being honest, I only acknowledged an hour's worth of losses. Ryan was in Vegas for 10 days. So... I don't think the mortgage payment is getting looked after in July. That's probably not going to happen.
Those home renovations that he's doing are going to take a bit of a hit. Yeah.
But I digress a bit here to get back to the point I was making. So yeah, I'm ambling through the casino at like 5 a.m. just because I'm trying to stay on the Eastern time zone. And what was unnerving was my lure to the tables. Like, it's 5 a.m. and I want to play blackjack. I didn't. So willpower prevailed, but I'm feeling a little bit today. A little bit,
Yeah, hey, make sure you use your game sense. As we like to say, don't get it over your head. All right, well, that's a little bit different than me going out and being in Hamilton on Friday and being 2 hours ahead of the schedule. A little bit different. I was going to say, I've been in a lot of Vegas casinos at 5 a.m., just usually not getting up and getting moving. Having not gone to bed just yet. All right, let's start with the Oilers. There was a report yesterday that several agents of Oilers players who were outside of the leadership group who actually chatted with Bob Babcock have voiced their concerns and have also voiced concerns about players being traded to Edmonton if Babcock is the head coach. So, you know, it seems like every couple of days there's some sort of new reporting or different reporting on the Babcock situation. What are your thoughts on the latest stuff yesterday, Dregs?
Yeah, I mean, we can attack this a myriad of different ways, right? And when you hire a coach like Mike Babcock, and it's not just the experience, it's the persona, it is the stories and the history around Mike Babcock that you're hiring as well, fair or unfair. That's just the reality of the situation. One thing I know for certain, and it doesn't matter if it's Mike Babcock or any coach in the National Hockey League who has previous experience. Guys, you know what happens when a coach gets fired and then hired somewhere else? Well, the team that fired the coach has a collection of players that will reach out to players on the team that coach has been more recently hired on and go, heads up. Here's what you've got coming your way. Now, that might be one or two guys, and you might have 10 guys that go, you know what? This guy is legit tactically. He is absolutely spot on. You're going to learn a lot. Don't be afraid to take some heat. Make sure you have a thick skin because he holds everybody. Like, that stuff happens on a regular basis when there are coaching changes. It's different, it's elevated, and it's more significant because of everything that Mike Babcock brings with him. But, you know, there's a reason. Do we honestly think that Zach Hyman, who's got a depth of knowledge around Mike Babcock like no other. Now, he wasn't part of what went down in Columbus, right? Hence the investigation. But Hyman had a front row seat for everything that went down, including, you know, the headlines that were made in an experience that Babcock had with Mitch Marner at the time, right? Hyman knows exactly. He knows the truth behind what happened and how Mitch responded and how the team around them responded to that experience and that situation. So do we really think that Hyman wouldn't have reservation if he didn't believe that Mike Babcock is the right coach for the Edmonton Oilers at this time? Wouldn't he be the guy to say, nah, you know what, Connor, I understand what you think we need. This isn't the guy. He's not the guy we need. I'm telling you, I've got firsthand experience with this guy. So I go back and forth on this. I understand the investigation that's happening. I think it's needed. It's warranted. But here's a question, fellas. Why didn't this investigation happen in 2023? And the answer is because Mike Babcock resigned and the NHL didn't have a reason to investigate. Well, the National Hockey League is run by incredibly smart men. The Players Association, run by incredibly smart executives, right? And Mike Babcock was born to coach. It's in his DNA. I wouldn't say that's what he lives for, because that's being ridiculous.
Yeah,
he's a family man. Yeah. But come on, it's not about the money. It's about the juice that you get from being in a team environment, being on the bench, and trying to squeeze whatever you can out of each player to be their best, ultimately to win the Stanley Cup. So, that's what McDavid, I think, sees in the opportunity of hiring Mike Babcock. So I think just it was narrow-minded for everybody involved back in 2023, not to say, okay, well, you've resigned, you're saying you're retiring, but we're still going to do an investigation to make sure. The NHLPA would have done that. So the NHL could have done that, or done it more extensively than what happened. So the investigation is underway now. I know that executives have been interviewed that were associated with the Columbus Blue Jackets back in 2023. I believe that started late last week, and now it'll happen more in earnest now in terms of the NHL getting the players, likely getting to Mike Babcock for his account of everything that went down, and then there'll be some sort of determination as to whether or not the league feels he's fit to return, and then it's up to the Edmonton Oilers to actually officially hire him as the head coach.
And it is kind of odd, Darren. You brought up Hyman, Connor, the leadership core, I guess, interviewing Babcock. But, we're looking at a very important time for this organization. And if the rest of the players on the team, and traditionally, I guess, we're Babcock, we could argue that, the stars are fine. It's maybe the third and fourth liners, as we've heard. Does that concern you that the leadership group really didn't consult much with the rest?
Well, do we know that, though? I mean,
true.
Well, except if the agents are coming out and saying stuff, it just kind of leads to the fact that.
Sure. I would find it hard to believe, but how deep are we talking about here? I mean, every team in the National Hockey League, again, essentially has a players' chat text chain, right? Look, you may not get Isaac Howard coming forward to Connor McDavid and going, Connor, I have a question. Maybe. I mean, they might have that relationship. I use him as an example, just as a young, up and comer for the Edmonton Oilers. But was there a vote taken by the team, before McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman especially decided that, okay, we're going to the PA because we think that this guy is the right man for the job? I doubt that. I certainly don't know that. But I do believe that the player agents are being truthful. There will be some pushback. As has been talked about and reported on since the moment this story broke, Mike Babcock is not for everyone as a player, right? And I think it was Rashog who said something in the market a couple of days ago, maybe it was yesterday, reminding us of what Babcock said when he was hired in Columbus after his experience in Toronto. And he virtually said, look, I had to do some deep self-evaluating here. And I recognized after the Toronto experience that you have to change and you have to evolve. I'm paraphrasing here, essentially what he meant. And that was mere days before all hell broke loose with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So it's not McDavid or Hyman or Draisaitl that are likely going to feel the brunt of things go sideways if Mike Babcock is hired as head coach and if Mike Babcock hasn't actually embraced change. I'm one of the few that's willing to give this man the benefit of the doubt. We've seen others around the league, certainly players, yes, coaches, yes, managers, who've been given second, third, fifth, eighth chances to prove that, they've done the work and they've changed. Okay. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. If Connor McDavid and the leaders of the Edmonton Oilers have done their investigation, they know he's the right man for the job, then I'm okay with it. But I do understand why this investigation is necessary. I know the PA guys, if the NHL finishes their investigation and goes, in our estimation, Mike Babcock is worthy to return, the PA isn't going to fight it. They're going to go, okay, no problem. At least he's now faced the allegations that were presented back in 2023.
Dregs, one more on the Babcock thing, then I want to talk about Nurse, but any inkling of a timeline? Like, how long does this take, you think, with the investigation?
They've obviously invested some time already, but as I said earlier, the true guts of the investigation are happening now. You can ask the highest office and you get pushback. They're just, look, we're not talking about a timeline here. It could be days, maybe it's a little bit longer than that. But there was kind of a hint, a suggestion that maybe they would get it done over the course of the weekend. So if Edmonton wanted to move forward with Babcock, that could have happened yesterday, could happen early this week. I never believed that, because why would the NHL do that while the Stanley Cup final was still ongoing? Well, now the Stanley Cup final is over, right? So the focus can be on this investigation. And this investigation isn't purely involving Bettman and Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly. Like, the head of NHL security is deeply and actively involved and might be, in fact, heading this investigation. So they're going to make sure that every stone is turned over and going through all of it.
All right. Speaking of timelines, let's flip over to the Darnell Nurse conversation. We're with Darren Dreger. He's our hockey insider today for GS Construction on the Firehouse Subs hotline.
Yeah.
The nurse thing I find fascinating. It's see some people outside of the market think I think they view Darnell Nurse as having more value in a trade than some of us in the market do. So the return could end up being better than we're expecting. But You've got a draft coming up. We know some deals get done at the draft or conversations get going at the draft. We've got free agency. Is it a deal that happens before free agency or team? Not a great free agent class this year, so maybe happens. So I'm curious on the urgency to maybe get something done here. How do you feel it is, both from teams looking at them and the Oilers trying to move them?
Well, it's a salary cap dump. That's what we know, right? And I'm glad you brought it up, because I kind of got radioed last week on Overdrive by a headline on social media, and smugly in Raleigh, I think it was prior to Game 5 on Overdrive.
The crickets. I don't.
Yeah, the crickets. It was a disrespectful comment because it was taken out of context. I think that Darnell Nurse is a quality NHL defenseman. I absolutely do. The problem with Darnell is he's playing on a team that has a bunch of upgrades that are required here, right? And he's a 9.2 plus salary cap hit. So therein lies the issue of interest. In the hockey player, in the character of the player and the person, yes, there's interest in Darnell Nurse. I mean, that's pretty obvious. So I think the tricky part comes down to, okay, well, do you have to take a bad contract or contracts back? How many teams out there that Darnell is willing to go to have the cap space to just make a hockey trade whereby the Oilers get some assets in return and they don't have to take a bad contract back? Not many. It's a $9.2 million. It's a short list. So, how creative can you be? I think the Toronto Morgan Rielly situation is a little bit different, and it seems like Toronto is willing to be more patient at this point. And to be fair, it was Darnell who just said, okay, enough of this stuff. I'm not going to be dragged through all the speculation one more time. I'm going to take ownership of this. So he made the request and submitted his list. All right. So that's what you're kind of looking for, is a Morgan Rielly, Darnell Nurse kind of fit. Right, where you've got two guys who need a change. They need a refresh. They're both good defensemen. So could it work? I don't know. I mean, that's up to John Chaykin. It's up to Stan Bowman to figure out if it can work. So it's not like you're taking on 2 or 3 stiffs in return for Darnell Nurse. I'm not suggesting that at all. There just has to be a willingness to work hard to find the money that fits the transaction here for the team that's getting Darnell Nurse, and Darnell Nurse wants to play for.
Going to Vegas now in 3 names: Ryan Craig, John Tortorella, and Bruce Cassidy. What do you see happening with all those individuals? Because it's kind of all moving right now.
Keep one, marry one, kill one.
Yeah. If you want, I mean, take a swing at that.
What happens there? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is possible that, Kelly McCrimmon of the Vegas Golden Knights relent and they allow the Oilers to have permission to get to Cassidy. I highly, highly, highly doubt that. And that was amplified by somebody who I feel is in the know there last night. I checked in when I landed. And look, McCrimmon and company are in no rush. They're still reeling, stinging from that Game 6 loss, right? And we can all appreciate that. And with all due respect to Bruce, he's under contract and he will get paid. So now you look to John Tortorella, who did a great job. The hockey analysts might look at some of the lineup adjustments in Game 4, 5, even in Game 6 and go, not so sure about that. It's not John Tortorella's fault that Jack Eichel couldn't get going. Mitch Marner essentially went cold after the big game, right? And others, you could say the same thing of Sebastian Aho. That's just what the Stanley Cup final often is all about. So now then I shift over to Ryan Craig, who is their American Hockey League coach. And, I know that Kellen McCrimmon and management believe deeply in the coaching ability of Ryan Craig. And Ryan Craig, I think this is he just finished his third year in the AHL. And he left the NHL as an assistant to go to the American League to get head coaching experience. So do they feel he's ready? And if they feel he's ready, then that's probably not going to bode well for John Tortorella and extending his time in Vegas. If they don't feel that Ryan Craig is ready and Torts is at least open to the idea of a short-term extension, then maybe that's the fit there.
Dregs, when's the next podcast drop?
Yeah, we're doing one later this morning. Just in time, man. Ferraro is in full golf mode now, as he should be. So I believe he's got like an 8:30 Pacific. I think that's his tee off. So we're gonna try and get one put to bed here in about the next 20 minutes or so.
All right. Well, you guys have fun with that. Excellent segment today. We appreciate the time. We'll chat next week.
Hey guys, have a good one.